In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the fuel tank on this Toyota Camry. Let's get started. To begin this process, we need to relieve fuel pressure from the system. To do that, in your engine compartment towards the driver's side, you'll see this cover which says relay and fuses. You're going to pop this up by pressing on this tab here. There's a similar looking tab on the back side, and this houses all of your fuses, including the one for the fuel pump or the electronic fuel injection system, which is, if you look on this legend here, it's the one all the way to the right bottom. It's a 30 amp fuse. Looking in the fuse box, you'll see this green one right here. That's the 30 amp fuse we're after. Use your fuse puller. If you don't have this in your in the cap of your fuse box, you can use some needle nose pliers. Pull up on that fuse, remove it, set it aside safely. I'm going to leave this cap here with the fuse and the fuse puller in it. And now we're going to go crank the engine. What this is going to do is it's going to try to start, but there's no fuel pressure being delivered, so it's just going to use up the rest that's in the lines. Just a few cranks should be enough. There you go. The next step is to remove this back seat, or the bottom of it at least, so we can access the top of the fuel pump. To remove this, on each side, you'll have a little hook right about here and here that snaps it down. So just grab it and pull up firmly, and it should pop out. There we go. Once you do that, you should be able to continue lifting it and pulling it out. Now this is the cover where we'll access everything, the electrical connector as well as all the lines. It is stuck down with some butyl tape, so just take something that you have that'll pry it. If you're using a metal piece like I am, which sometimes you kind of have to because it's really stuck on here, be careful not to scrape anything, scratch the paint off, because it will rust if you do that. Just gentle, constant pressure will get this off of here. There we go. This butyl tape is extremely sticky, so be careful not to get it on your clothing or on the carpet, because it will be pretty much impossible to get back off. Once you get to this point, you can push this grommet through so you can get a little bit more slack out of this wiring harness. There we go. And we can flip this over. Once again, make sure you don't get this stuff on the carpet. And now we can unplug the electrical connector and get this wire completely out of here. A lot of times these are gummed up with a lot of sand and debris, so work it back and forth. If you need to, get a vacuum and vacuum all this up. Don't try to press it really hard with some pliers or pry on it with a screwdriver, because if you break this connector, you can't properly reattach your fuel pump anymore, and that would be a problem. I can see that it wants to move, but it's gummed up with a lot of sand. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab a vacuum and try to vacuum all this up and maybe spray a little bit of rust penetrant right in the connector area here to loosen it up. Soak that down a little, and then I'll work it back and forth. Hopefully this helps break it free. Since I have the rust penetrant out, I'm just going to soak down these connectors as well. A lot of times these get stuck, and we'll have to take all these off anyway. It has come down to using pliers. Be very gentle if you have to do this. Gently press on this, wiggle it. There we go. It was clearly pretty stuck in here, so I'm going to tap it down like this. Hopefully that'll remove some of the debris in there. I might blow some compressed air, but hopefully yours comes off a lot easier. Now, if you need to use a vacuum to do further cleaning before you disconnect any lines, this is going to be the last time you can do that, because once you crack any three of these lines open, fuel fumes come out, and electric motors and fuel fumes don't really mix together well. If you still need to remove debris after you've removed the lines, you can use compressed air, of course, but just not a vacuum. To disconnect the red connector for the evap line, I'm going to start at the bottom with a pocket screwdriver and press that little hook down. with another tool, I'm going to pry outward like this and come in at the top with the pocket screwdriver and press this one, or pry this one up. As you push this out, it's going to click out of place like that. That's how you know it's disconnected. And now, if you just wiggle this slowly, you should be able to pull this line off. Once again, this is for evaporative emissions. This is not fuel, but there are fuel fumes going through it. Next, we have to remove the fuel lines here, and it doesn't matter which one you do first. These yellow clips for the fuel lines, they slide straight back like that. You have to basically do a similar style setup here as to what we had before for the red one. A tool to pry it out and one to unlock it as you pry out. There we go. Whoops, sometimes they do pop back, so be careful, but also be careful when you pry not to damage the fitting or the line here. There we go. Remove this. You can either remove it all the way, or sometimes the hose will pop off like this. It looks like I have to remove mine all the way. If you do, remember which direction it goes in. Not that it'll lock in any other way. You can't put it upside down, but obviously keep these safe. And now you should be able to slowly pull up on this. Set that aside. If you wanted to wrap a rag around it so debris from here doesn't get on the line, that's also a good idea. So I'm going to use this to hold pressure on it. And do one side and the other side. There we go. Spraying rust penetrant definitely helped on those. Often they are stuck. Bring this through. They're both the same, both of these, so you don't have to worry about mixing them up. And give it a couple twists. Remove this line. Perfect. To remove this fuel tank, we have to drop the exhaust, or at least this section of it, because the exhaust runs right underneath the fuel tank, which is here. But in our case, the exhaust has actually been patched up over here. There should be a flange where you can just unbolt it here. At the back here by the muffler, you can remove these two bolts and disconnect the flange, or if you don't want to mess with it and you don't want to disturb it, just remove all the rubber hangers and drop the muffler with it. It doesn't matter where you start. I'm going to start in the back, disconnect these two hangers, and then move my way forward. I'm taking the muffler off with the pipe just because I don't want to disturb that connection at the flange. I have an exhaust hanger tool here. If you don't have this, you could just use some large pliers and basically do the same thing. But pop this off, and now with this one popped off, I'm going to swing it to the side here, and this is about the point where I would want to use some support so I don't put too much pressure on the remaining hangers. I'm using a pull jack since I'm on a lift. If you're on the ground, you could use a floor jack or really anything else that you can come up with. Maybe you have a helper that'll help you support this as you remove the rest of the hangers. There is a second hanger on the back here. Pop this one off as well. On the back of the muffler, or I guess towards the front of the vehicle, there is another hanger here. Pop this one off. One more on the pipe, so just follow it along. There we go. Now you would disconnect it at this flange here and drop the exhaust down from here backwards. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go forward until the manifold and disconnect it there. Now let's remove all of the shields that are underneath it. We'll start with these plastic shields. There's one here and one on the other side. They're all held on with 10mm fasteners. Doesn't matter where you start, take them all off. Careful, because sometimes there's a bunch of debris that's hiding in here. These clips on the front here are actually plastic, so be careful with them. Now you can take this shield down. Okay, a couple more bolts on the back side of the other shield. Okay, there we go. Now this shield actually has a couple more retainers in the middle of it. In the center, you have two large push clips that look like this. You have to just unscrew them I'm using a little pry bar. You can use a very large flathead if that's what you have. On these, if unthreading it doesn't work, the threads are probably stripped, so just pull down on it. Unthread it as you pull down on it. That should allow it to slowly pop off. Now let's remove the 10mm nuts that hold the parking brake cables onto these brackets. There's one on each side. A lot of times these are very rusty, so keep that in mind. If it feels like it's going to break, you're actually better off just bending this bracket a little bit out of the way and leaving this attached as it is. There's that. This should give us plenty of slack. If it doesn't, just follow it along and there's another bracket that you can disconnect. But for now, this should be plenty. Same on the other side here. And break this free. Spraying these with rust penetrant actually doesn't do anything because these are closed nuts. They're capped off on purpose so that the threads wouldn't rust. So the brackets are rusty, but the threads oftentimes are kind of just stuck there from being on for so long, but they should not be rotted. Okay, take this off, and that looks like it gives us plenty of clearance here. Now let's disconnect the filler neck. You can take a screwdriver or a pick, take the yellow tab that's here and push it towards the outside of the vehicle, so towards the driver's side like that. It should want to slide. If it doesn't, it's most likely stuck from debris being there. Now let's support the fuel tank. I have a transmission jack with a fuel tank adapter on here, some soft pads to hold it, and I'm going to put minimal pressure on it, and then we can undo the straps. All these straps are held on with 14mm bolts, so sneak a socket up there with an extension, and let's unbolt these bolts. Now let's take the other end off of this strap. Now you can pull your strap down, clear the sway bar, and take the strap off. Now let's go for the other strap. All right, this strap wants to fall down, so let's take the other bolt off on this strap. All right, remove this strap as well, set it aside. Now, slowly and carefully lower the tank. Keep in mind that filler neck is still attached, although it is not locked in, it is attached. So go down, you're gonna have to clear that sway bar. Okay, let's pause here and disconnect the filler neck. Now carefully pry the filler neck off. Make sure you don't break it. There we go. Now lower the tank a little bit, just a few inches past that sway bar, and you should be able to see this bracket attached to the tank here. Looks like someone's been in here before and this is broken, but you should be able to either just pop these lines off or slide this bracket sideways, and that should unlock these lines. Now there is one more fuel line that's at the front of the tank, so let's go unclip that. There's a clip right here. Take this line out and just let it hang over here. Now we can lower the tank all the way. Now if there's a lot of debris built up around this ring, remove it, whether you blow compressed air, wire brush, whatever you have to do, but get it off so that when you pull this, it doesn't fall inside the fuel pump or the fuel tank. Now remove all the 8mm bolts that hold this fuel pump lock ring on. Because there are fuel fumes in the air, avoid using electric power tools. I'm just going to do this by hand. These bolts are small, and even when the heads look rusty, oftentimes the threads are actually not, so they hopefully will come off easily. On this last one, hold this down because it is spring-loaded. It's going to want to pop up. Okay, remove this, set it aside. Now we can remove the fuel pump assembly. There's a hose here that we have to disconnect. Take a screwdriver and pop that connector forward or out like that. And then you can slide this down. This is just for your evap emission stuff. And now you can slide this assembly out of here. It's going to want to get caught on stuff. There we go. Once you get to this point, there's a float right here, level sensor. Keep that in mind. Don't just pull it up really hard, but there's your fuel pump. Let's set this aside and replace our tank. Let's remove this shield. Pinch these clips with your needle nose pliers or whatever you have. That should pop this out. Do the same to the other side. There's one clip, and then you can pull this shield right out. Now get your fuel pump, hold this hose out of the way, slide the pump down into the tank, just like this. And then once you have this set down most of the way, don't forget to plug in this hose for the evap. It just clips onto there. Now, you're gonna wanna make sure the pump is positioned the right way based on how the tank is here. So I know that my evap line was connected towards the front of the vehicle, which is the end of the tank here. So this is how I'm going to drop my pump down, just like this. If it's not 100% perfect, that's okay, but try to get it as close as possible. Push this down, set this locking ring over. It has a little tab that has to fit in that hole. And now you want to just line it up like this. Start in the first bolt that lines up. It might be a little challenging just because you have to hold the pump down, otherwise the springs will push it back up. Okay, so that's started. I'm gonna go across over here, start this one. And then across to this one, kind of in a triangle shape, so I can make sure that it's pressed down evenly before I start all the other ones. It'll just make things easier. And now, just start all your other hardware, and then we'll snug it up. When you snug this down, go in a cross pattern back and forth, and don't make them crazy tight. As soon as they bottom out, which is right about here, just give them a little bit extra. They're very small, and you don't want to break these. You'll see as I tighten this, the pump is going down. That's because the gasket is being compressed. Okay, now I'm just gonna go around in a circle, check all of them, because with these rubber gaskets like this, usually, as you can see, the first ones will loosen up as you tighten up the last few, because the gasket squishes down. All right, now let's peel off all these pads and stick them onto the new tank. I'm gonna do this one at a time. There should be still enough glue left for you to kind of stick them in place here. It's important because this is the areas where it contacts the body. So when you push it up, you don't want bare metal on metal. When doing this, I like to do this one at a time so I don't confuse where they go. And I have a little bit of butyl tape. This is going to help me stick these on here so that they stay, because once you put the tank up, these are going to get squished and they'll automatically stay in place anyway. Let's take this clip out, which is for the front fuel line. I'm going to stick a screwdriver down here, pry it open, shake all the debris out of it, and then put it over here on the new tank. And if you still had that white piece that for me was broken on the back of the tank, transfer that the same way. It goes right here. Now put this shield back in here. I still have a couple clips that function, this one and the one at the back. This one here, I'm just going to put a wire tie through it. That should hold it nicely. I'll cut this. Now bring your new tank up into position. Now clip the fuel line onto this retainer over here. Make sure you line up your other two lines so that they don't get crushed and pinched. Now continue lifting your fuel tank. Make sure those lines don't get crushed there. Clear the sway bar. If your clip wasn't broken, reattach it here And now let's continue going up. Don't go all the way up, just about halfway from here. And now we can put in the fuel filler neck. Try to clear the sway bar over here. And now we should have enough clearance to press this on. Once it's pressed on, lock it in with the yellow locking tab here. Press it inward that way. There we go. Once you have this locked in, try to pull out on it. If it's not locked in, it will create a fuel leak, and that would be very dangerous. Now, lift up on the fuel tank until you feel it contact the body of the vehicle. Try to wiggle it back and forth so it can kind of seat into place. It's molded to fit flush. Put a little bit of upwards pressure on it, just like that. And now let's get the straps on. Make sure you don't pinch anything when you do this. Line them up. Start in the bolt. Now let's start it in at the other end before you tighten it completely. Now let's get the other strap in. Line it up and start the bolt in just a few threads. Okay, let's get the other front one started. And last one. Okay, they're all started. All right, let's snug them all up. Once they bottom out, I'll stop because I'm going to come back and torque them. 33 foot-pounds is the torque for all 4 of these bolts. All right, they're all torqued. Now remove your support slowly, just in case. There we go. Now let's get the parking brake cables back on their brackets. Snug these up. Make sure that this tab here goes into its retaining hole, just so it can be lined up properly. When you tighten these, once they bottom out, just give them a little extra. If you over tighten them, it could actually bend this whole bracket or break the stud on it, so you want to avoid that. Do the same to the other side. Let's get this shield up first. It has these 2 studs that these containers slide on. Line them up, push them, and they should lock into place. And now there are a couple screws on that side and plastic retainers on this side. Resecure the plastic retainers at this end. Once they get snug, just stop right there. They are just plastic, so they will break. Put in the screws. All right, now take your shield on the other side and line it up. Once it lines up, put in the plastic clips on the back here. This is going to be the easiest to start with. All right. Okay. Okay, let's put the 2 bolts on the back side. All right. In preparation of reinstalling the exhaust, I'm going to put some silicone paste inside these hangers just so the muffler and the rest of the exhaust can slide on easily. Now bring your exhaust back up. Now let's reconnect any exhaust hangers that you disconnected. Reconnect the 2 in the rear. Now, let's reconnect all the fuel lines. I'll start with this one here, and this evap line. Once it bottoms out like that, hold it and press this clip back in. Use a little pocket screwdriver, lift those up, make sure it doesn't come out. Let's put in the yellow retainers for the other fuel lines. Slide it in. This one came from that direction, and you want to make sure that it locks in completely. This part needs to be flush and the ends here need to be hooked in. This line should not be able to pop out. Do the same to this one. Now connect the electrical connector. Make sure that clicks. Flip this cover over, line it up. I mean, there's really only one way that it can go on. And because there's no hardware attaching this, it's just butyl tape, you're going to want to put pretty much your whole body weight on it. Just squish that tape down. This is going to seal it up. It's important that it's sealed. And of course, once you put the back seat and maybe have some passengers or cargo back here, it'll automatically squish down. But to start, you want to have a nice tight seal. So make sure it's even all the way around. And there you have it. Let's put the back seat on. When you put the back seat in, make sure you get the seatbelt latches through their corresponding cutouts here. And then slide the seat in. Sometimes you'll need to kind of forcefully push it down into place. Make sure the seat belts themselves are not getting pinched and caught. And once you get it close, it should pop down in position. And this is not the final step. Oh, that just clicked in. The final step is to actually press this down to clip it. There we go. And there you have it. Let's start up the engine, make sure it runs. Put this fuse back, just like that. Take your fuse box cover, line it up, snap it down. Now that the job is done, before we start the vehicle, I like to prime the fuel system, which means putting the key in the ignition, turning it 2 clicks to the on position. This is going to let the fuel pump run. Hold it here for a few seconds, shut it off, do this again. I'm going to do this 3 times and then I'll start it. This usually gets all the air out of the system. You can hear the fuel pump run if you're in a quiet environment. Starts right up.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.